especially those who made your NaNoWriMo goals or work towards it. Way to go. So glad to see so many people here at What's Your Writers Club. And hello to those who are joining us virtually as well across the state. For those of you I haven't met, my name is Jody Vinson, and I'm the program manager, as Ian mentioned, here at the club. And I just wanted to say I'm in awe of your accomplishments, and so grateful to be a part of your writing and your content creation, especially those of you who participated in the NaNoWriMo Sprint Day this month. That was great to see, and those of you I've seen just coming into the club, putting your head down, working towards those word count goals. It's been really inspiring for me, so thanks. So let's take all this good creative energy, recharge during the holidays, and enter this new year with a renewed sense of community and commitment to our writing. We're hoping to have some more events like this where you can get to know other writers in the new year, as well as some programming that focuses on kind of the business end of writing and practical things around our writing lives. So we're here to celebrate everyone. We also wanted to recognize the accomplishments of one of our members, Vanessa Lillie, whose book Small Voices was once a NaNoWriMo word count and is now on its way to being published by Thomas and Mercer in September 2019. So congrats, Vanessa. We thought it'd be inspiring to hear a little bit about Vanessa's process of bringing her project to the world. So let me introduce her briefly, and then I'll ask her a few questions about that process. And then I'll open it up if you have any questions for her, if something comes up while we're talking. We'd love to have this be a conversation that's helpful and encouraging to everyone. So Vanessa Lillie is from Oklahoma. She went to grad school in DC before she moved to Providence 7 years ago. And she worked as a marketing and communications consultant for education-related nonprofits. And she now writes full-time, it's the dream, when not entertaining her 3-year-old son. Her forthcoming psychological suspense novel, Small Voices, is set in Providence, and it follows a new mother suffering from postpartum psychosis while reeling from the murder of a close friend. So Vanessa, thank you for joining us, and thanks for being willing to share all your experience and expertise in this area. Do you want to start just by describing your NaNoWriMo project, and then maybe where it's at, the book's at today?
Yes. So for me, NaNoWriMo was and is an opportunity to do things kind of the right way for me. Before this book was bought, I had written 2 other books over 10 years off and on, and sort of did everything ass backwards, I feel like. And so for me, NaNoWriMo was an opportunity to thoroughly outline and really commit to structure and pace and character and plot and things that I kind of arbitrarily approached in my other books and just fill with it here, fill with it there. But I wanted to write full time. I wanted to be a professional writer, and so that means I probably, in the psychological suspense genre, needed to probably put a book out a year. So dabbling on 2 books over 10 years was not going to cut it. So with Nano, it was an opportunity to really kind of commit to a path that I could see long-term professionally. So I outlined it for 2 months leading up to November, and I also, at that point, had a 15-month-old son, and so he started going to daycare 2 days a week, and so that's when I outlined. And then when Nano started, I just pushed myself and wrote 50,000 words that were not good, but they were words that were down on the page. And then in December, I wrote another 25,000 to 35,000 words. I actually didn't write the end then, because I really thought it was a hot mess, but it was down, and then, after a little bit of revision, I did write the end, because it felt right. But Nano was very instrumental in me just figuring out a process that was much more sustainable than what I had done before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of the people I've talked to who have been working on the NaNoWriMo word counts here at the club have been telling me that they just have had to turn off their inner editor during that month just for the sake of generation and word count. But I imagine many of them are kind of transforming back into the editor mode now or in the near future. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that revision process looked like post NaNoWriMo?
Yes, it was extensive.
Yeah.
I definitely did not send any query letters out to agents right away, that's for sure. I was happy that I had a book and I could get my arms around it, but I saw so many issues. And kind of the one thing that I did early on was commit to working with what's called a developmental editor. So it's a person who probably has worked in publishing at some point, and maybe now they're more freelance, but they really look at it from a pretty critical eye of editing. And it's very similar to what you'll get if you work with an editor at a publishing house or another freelance editor. So I was kind of like, all right, I'm gonna save up some money because they're expensive, and then I reached out to different ones. And so in January, so that's, you know, not long after I'd written this hot mess of a book, I started contacting editors and got myself in their calendars and found one that I connected with and committed to her that by July, you know, I would send her this draft. I actually ended up not being ready, and I bumped it all the way back to October. But the point for me was just, you know, the personal commitment, the financial commitment, the kind of end goal that is very motivating for me as a writer to know that someone's expecting it and I'm gonna pay for it and I need to work on it. And so that was a big part of my revision plan. I mean, I worked with critique partners and, you know, was constantly revising, but I knew kind of for me that end goal would be to work with that developmental editor, because I thought to get an agent, that is probably a step I needed to take with this book that I hadn't taken before with the other two that, you know, didn't end up going anywhere.
Yeah. Were there any other tools or resources that you used during that process, or?
Absolutely, tons.
Yeah.
There are so many good books out there. If you just go on, you know, Amazon and search around for different writing books, read the reviews, and I think you just kind of think about where your problem areas are. So mine is structure, always. So when I finished writing anything, I have to just go back and think about structure. And so I read a lot of structure-oriented revision books. But if yours is character or whatever it might be, there is a writing book out there for you. Donald Moss is M-A-A-S-S is his last name. He has written several great books, both that tackle structure, character, plot, the emotional craft of writing. He's a really instrumental. There are a lot. There's almost an infinite number of writing books out there, because a lot of writers write writing books. So if craft is, you know, something that you're focusing on, just kind of search around, read reviews, and you can find something that can address the areas that are kind of problems, you know, in your own writing that you see.
Are there any other, I'm just curious if there's any other local resources or groups that you connected with here in Providence, or if you're mostly online?
Yeah, so I did a Grub Street workshop, and that was great. I know Frequency just had one. They're wonderful. They're newer, so this was 2+ years ago. So I did Grub Street for a little bit. And I took a lot of online courses too. They're wonderful resources online. There's a group called Manuscript Wishlist, and it's both a place where agents and editors post what kinds of manuscripts are on their wish list. So if you are querying, it's a great place to see what different agents are looking for. But they also have one-on-one opportunities where you can post a chapter or a query letter, and an agent or editor that you pick, and they do cost some money that goes to the agents, editors, and also the person who runs the website. But it's great. It was so worth it. And so when I started querying, I already had 1 or 2 agents who had read at least the first chapter, giving me feedback, and, you know, I've requested to read the full when I was done. So that's another kind of a motivating thing along the way, right? To just have that knowing that when you get to a place that you're happy with it, you've got someone that wants to read it.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's very motivating for me anyway.
Yeah, and just to have that audience in mind as you're working, like to keep yourself outside of it a bit. Yeah.
Yes, and to get feedback. I mean, that's right. I probably reworked my first chapter 100 times. I mean, just constantly working with critique partners, friends you meet online, Twitter contests, all of it is just ongoing in terms of ways that you can improve and connect with people and learn to be better.
Yeah. So it obviously wasn't this situation when you finished at the end of November 30th and you thought, I'm ready, I'm going to get out into the world. What was the time frame like before you?
I queried January of the next year, so that would have been 14 months since I started it. Was there a certain point, or how did you know when you were ready for that next step? After the developmental edit, and if you haven't done a developmental edit before, I mean, it's like every single page, there's red ink of, and then there's notes of character problems and plot problems and continuancy problems, and I mean, it is deeply involved, and a little overwhelming, but that's what you pay for, and that's what you want. And so after I went through that, at times gut-wrenching revision, I did come out of it, and it looked different, and I was sort of seeing it in a different way, and I was seeing the problems in a way that I could really address, and so that revision made a big difference, for sure. And, you know, kind of along the way, critique partners were like slashing and burning it, and then by the end they weren't, and you can just kind of feel a shift of like, okay, people are connecting, they don't hate the main character, they're not completely confused, you can kind of see from the feedback you're getting that things are working, your pitch is honed. I entered some Twitter contests and had some agents say they're interested in it. That made me think like, okay, I've got my arms around this enough that I'm articulating it in a way that people are connecting with, so that means I probably understand my story in a way that I didn't before.
Right. So a lot of listening to other people.
Yeah, until it sounds like they don't hate it.
Yeah. So you mentioned these Twitter contests and kind of like almost like testing the waters as far as when you did feel you were ready, how did you go about finding an agent? What was that research like initially?
Yes, so this is the second book that I have queried extensively. So the book that I worked on before, off and on for like 7 years, and queried it and stopped and revised, and queried and stopped and revised. I probably queried 150 agents, I would say, around then. So during that process that didn't work out the first time, I did learn a lot, and so I already kind of had a spreadsheet of agents who were interested in psychological thrillers or psychological suspense. So I had a place to start, but this next time I looked a lot at sales, which, you know, for like talking business, like it's, my genre particularly is a saturated market. There are a lot of psychological thrillers, and for someone to buy a debut, in my opinion, it's always hard to sell as a debut, but I feel like in the psychological thriller genre, it is particularly hard because they have so many kind of blockbusters already that publishers would much rather invest resources in authors that are already selling, and it just makes sense. And so I just was looking at which agents are publishing debuts in my genre. And that's what led me to query Victoria Sanders, who became my agent. She had several clients who, she had some big clients, but also some clients who had recently published. And that ended up really sort of working out because she was looking for more similar to what she had been selling. And she connected with the work. You never know who's gonna connect. It is like a needle in a haystack. But I think looking at sales can lead you to an agent who is hungry for the kind of work that you're creating.
And how did you use social media as well, I imagine, and what did that look like?
So I got her through the slush pile, as I call it. It's just, you know, an email that landed in her inbox. But I had queried agents who had requested it through Twitter pitch contests, where you go online and you pitch your, an amount of characters a tweet would be, 160 nowadays. Anyway, can't remember. But you can pitch that way. There's Pitch Wars pitch contests. The book that didn't go anywhere, I was in Pitch Wars with that book, which is a big online contest as well. So there's a lot of different online kind of mechanisms, but at the end of the day, the agent that connected the most with it and took me on was one who I just got through cold querying.
Yeah.
She didn't know me and had never read my work, and she isn't really even on kind of Twitter or anything. So it's just, she had a lot of clients who were selling and, you know, had a good reputation.
So you sent her your query letter.
Yes.
And Vanessa has been very generous in sharing her query letter with us. So once we're done, talking here, you're welcome to pick up a copy if you're looking for kind of a model and want to see what that looks like. It's obviously a successful one.
Well, yeah. I don't know if I call it a model, but it's good enough. Query letters are tricky. I'm sure as anyone who's written one knows, and that you just, if you find the right agent, you kind of hit them at the right time. It's a hook, it's a pitch, it's not a summary of your work. And so on the back of this, there's another agent who had some tips that I included on there as well that I use. But I probably revised my query 20 plus times. You don't just write it once. It was a revision process as well. Mm-hmm. And then, there's a whole strategy around querying, like how many to send out and things like that. So it's another area that in publishing, it's like exhausting. It's like one more thing you have to learn a lot about, but it helps you. And so I did different online contests and swapped with other critique partners, and there's a lot of good resources about query letters out there, so definitely utilize those. People, Query Shark is like the one people talk about a lot. You can just read hundreds of queries with responses from agents, so it's really valuable.
Yeah. So it sounds like you go through a revision process with your whole novel, and then you go through a revision process with your query letter as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Feedback on that as
Yeah.
well. Yeah. Yeah. Well, definitely take a look at her query letter. Any other thoughts or tips on how to write a query, or how many people were you querying at one time?
So for this round, I did, I think, 20 at a time, and then right before I got the call from my agent, who would be my agent, at that time I had probably 8 or 9 full manuscripts. So if you send a letter out, someone likes it, they ask to read your whole full, usually. And so I had probably 8 out, and in one day I got 3 rejections. That's, it's like, and a full is, it's a little bit emotional because you think like this could be it. They're interested enough to read it. And so I had sort of had these like 3 gut punches in a row, and I went and ate Taco Bell and just like felt very sorry for myself. And then 3 days later I got a call that my agent, who would be my agent, loved it. So it's just one of those things that you don't ever know. You just send out as best you can and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Those 8 weren't right, but then the next one was. So
yeah. So keep going. So then once you started working with an agent, what did that submission to publishers process look like, and what role did you play in it? And I know it can look a lot of different ways for different people.
Absolutely. I think I went into it thinking I was going to need months and months of revision, and that's certainly based in friends of mine who had months of revision. I have a friend who sold recently. She would revise for almost 2 years with her agent, and I wasn't scared of that. I thought that's great, whatever it takes, because it is very difficult to sell a debut. And so whatever my agent thought, that's what I was going to do. But Victoria really had a very clear vision, and she had revisions, but she wanted it out quickly based on the timing around London Book Fair and some other things. So I just revised very fast for her, and we got it out, pretty quickly. But that's one path. There are lots of different ways, and some agents will, for example, maybe just send it out to 1 or 2 editors they know very well and get their feedback and learn from that, and then maybe recalibrate. There's just a lot of different ways you can do it.
Depending on your agent and how they're situated in the publishing world.
And the market really matters a lot. I mean, so people were saying, oh, urban fantasy, it's not selling, but then all of a sudden there's a big blockbuster, and then all of a sudden it is selling, and then all these editors, it just depends on the market. It depends on what editors are looking for, what's out there. And your agent knows these factors. That's their job. And so I kind of just did what she told me.
Yeah. So did you do any research into publishers, or did you have any hopes for publishers, or a list that you gave to your agent?
No, I just wanted someone to buy it.
Yeah. So you
that was it.
Trusted her with that.
Yes.
Yes. So she took it.
That is correct.
And obviously it worked out for you. Wonderful. So what's now that you are working with the publisher, with Thomas & Mercer, what has the editorial process, or are you in touch with the agent often, or how does that look?
Yes, so for Thomas & Mercer, their process is I worked with my editor. She sent me an editorial letter. It was about 7 pages. I worked for, I think, 2 months on those. And then for them, they also hire another developmental editor, which is something I've been through before. And so I'm just winding down, which is my excuse for why my Nano word count was so low. But this month I'm winding down and finishing up edits with this developmental editor. So in the end, with this publisher, I will have gone through 2 pretty substantial, revisions. And then once that's over, then we do things like proofs and copy editing, which is still very important, but not as much notes like you need to change this character's, point of view, or, not the big stuff, just more consistency and things like that.
Right.
At least that's what I'm hoping, because it's been a lot of revision.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, you were doing NaNoWriMo this year, and
yes.
I understand you're working on a second book. That is under contract. Yes. So curious to know how that's going, and how it is different or similar to working under contract versus writing your other books.
It is a little different because you know that someone is expecting it. I've been told that as you get closer to when your book comes out, you just start to hear a lot more noise, you read reviews, and you can really get blocked very easy. And so I'm being mindful of that I might just be obsessing over things, and in a weird place when September rolls around and Little Voices comes out, I might just be somewhere else, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And so I'm trying to get it done now, I guess is what I'm saying. And I'm pushing myself to just kind of get through this and get my arms around it, see what happens. My editor, I was lucky, she sort of just said, she heard my pitch, she thought it sounded good, she's like, go forth and write. So, it'll be terrifying when I email it to her, but hey, I'm gonna do my best.
Awesome, congrats. So do you have any further advice before we open it up to questions, or anything else you want to share about the process?
I mean, the only thing I would just say is, from the time I decided I wanted to try to write a book to the time I got my publishing deal was 13 years. And so I hope I would have kept going if I told myself then, day one, it's going to be 13 years before you get this together. But it's okay, because I just had to put the time in. And I look back at how frustrated I was when the book before no one took it, or the book before that. And, that was just the path, that was the journey, and that's how it is. And the only other thing I would say is just as much as you can have a community. That's been the best part, for sure. Is just the writing friends I made along the way, organizations like this, go to conferences if you can, take Grub, Frequency, Goat Hill workshops, meet other writers. Because ups and downs come, publishing is a business. But if you love writing and you love reading and writing people and reading people, just, create the community that will help you be a creative. Because that's really the best part.
Thank you. No, that's awesome advice. And after hearing the journey with this book, we'll all be looking forward to it, I'm sure, in September. Little Voices is coming out then, so look for it in the bookstores. So yeah, I want to make sure